what she said. She's magical, mystical, a powerful wonder girl.
Well, as time goes on, so do your financial needs. But the financial planning journey is typically different for men and women. Joining us now is Dilys Cruz, the Vice President of Wealth at Meridian Credit Union, who is here today to talk to us about why women need to take control of their financial well-being. Welcome back to What She Said, Dilys.
Thanks for having me.
We are so happy to have you on the show as a wealth expert and as our newest sponsor.
Yay!
And particularly aimed at women. So let's get into that right away. You say women control about 33% of the wealth in North America today. That's the highest share in history, and a number that's growing roughly, 8% a year?
Right.
But even still, we're reluctant to invest our money at the same rates as men. Why?
Well, that it's a really interesting subject. And so before I answer that, because I have some answers to that, I want to give you some stats, which actually boggled my mind. So like you said, 1/3 of all wealth in North America is controlled by women. That's over 1.1 trillion in Canada. And so in 2020, women could control as much as 67% of the assets because they're going to have the opportunity to inherit twice. Their parents are passing away, so they're inheriting it that way. And their spouses are passing away because women outlive men statistically. So they're coming into a lot of money. Almost 40% of women out-earn their husbands. And interestingly, half of those with over $500,000 to invest are women. 90% of females will be the sole decision maker at some point in their life. And 31% of women are primary breadwinners in Canada. And the last piece I thought was interesting, women are creating their own businesses at twice the rate as men. So the opportunity is huge. Now, contrast this with females are less likely than males to feel financially prepared for their retirement and in control of their investments. And only 27% of women report feeling financially confident relative to 45% of men. So I pause there after putting out all those numbers to say, that is very concerning. Women have all this wealth opportunity and are coming into a lot of wealth, yet they're not feeling financially prepared or confident in their future and how to manage that.
So, Dilys, let me ask you, if they're not investing, what are they doing with their money?
We're not sure. So, and the interesting thing is that they could be investing, but there's majority of women, there's a lot of research to suggest they're not happy with their advisors. They're afraid to go into their advisors, so they might be sitting in GICs or they might be sitting in investments that may not get them to where they need to be. But the bigger issue is that they're not happy with the advice they're getting and they're not going in to see advisors because they just feel that they're not connecting the way they want to be connected to.
Is that the fault, do you think, of the institution not recognizing that the way to engage women is different than men?
Yeah, I personally think the financial services industry's got it wrong, and the stats over and over are showing that. And so there is a lot of focus on what is it that women want. And so, again, there was a great study done by strategymarketing.ca, so I pulled a lot of this information from there. And part of the problem is that women don't feel heard. So it's not complex. It's just men and women communicate differently and want different things. And so I don't really like always, kind of bucketing women in a certain kind of way. But the reality is that especially on investing, quite often men are much more about, what are the returns and what are the investments, and I want to outperform the market. And I'm not saying all men are like that. Mm-hmm. Whereas women much more, I want to connect with you. I want you to know what stage of life I'm in. I want you to know what my stresses are, what my worries are, and connect with me from a life perspective, and then give me advice as to how I can, either conquer these fears or accomplish my goals. So there's much more of a relationship component. And given that 85% of investment advisors are men, and, John Gray, the author of, Men Are From Mars,
Women Are From Venus.
There's a communication issue. We all know that. So it's really about communication because a lot of the stats also suggested that although that there is a high percentage of male advisors, it's not that women want a male advisor. 7% of women said they would want a woman advisor, but the rest said it doesn't matter. Just connect with me. Build a relationship, build a rapport, and get to know me. And that's what financial industry, we're missing. As advisors, we're missing that.
But you aren't completely missing that at Meridian. I mean, I'm sure that you have changed things up in the last number of years to focus on that.
Yeah, and so thanks for that segue, because we have 50% of our advisors are women. And, we take a broader stance. It's really about our whole investing approach is about getting personal. Sit down and understand whoever is in front of you, whether it's male or female, get to know them personally, get to understand what they want to achieve, and then build a financial plan around them. It's not about going into the bravado and the markets and how you're going to outperform. It's really build that relationship and get to know the person and then come up with a plan.
Historically, we've been told that women are more risk averse. Is that changing? Is that now a stereotype?
Yeah, so that's a myth. So there's a few myths, and one of them is women are more risk averse. It's not that women are more risk averse. They take calculated risk. They will take much more balanced risk. They'll also look at where am I in my life and what does that risk in investments mean to where I am in my life. So it's much more balanced, and there is some research to suggest that women outperform men in the long term in terms of their investments because they're taking a more balanced approach. So I don't want this to be about a women-men thing, but I think that women do think differently, and that is absolutely a myth about women not wanting to take risk. It's just a different type of risk.
Okay, but before we go away from that women-men thing, what about the gender wage gap? I mean, we know it's 87 cents. Stats Canada says the women still earn 87 cents on the dollar. Yeah. We have a longer life expectancy, as you said. We have breaks in our careers to care for children or our parents. So how do we create a plan and find clear objectives when we have all those issues?
I think it's really important with that wage gap, and that's a whole nother topic. But I think that it does actually impact you because of the differential in terms of what you're actually going to end up at retirement. So firstly, we got to get rid of that wage gap. First and foremost,
that would be good.
We got to get rid of that wage gap. But understanding it is still there, that your advisor has to take that into consideration, not necessarily taking the wage gap in, but how can we get you to where you need to be at the end of retirement or whatever your goal is. So has to be taken into consideration.
It's hard, I think, for women to estimate. I think it's hard for anyone to estimate what they really need for retirement. There are stats, and they change, I guess, depending on your what you want to do for the next 20, 30 years.
Yeah.
Because retirement's changing for many people.
Yeah, and that's a really good point, because I actually just sat down with my advisor going through it, and we all go through different life stages, right? Different things. You might go through a divorce, you might lose a job. And so what you thought 5 years ago, 10 years ago in terms of what you want out of retirement might look very different. Also, as you get up there in age too, you might tweak it. And so I think it's important that you are reevaluating your plan regularly and rechecking in. And your advisor should be doing that. Just checkpoints, having that communication, and knowing what life stages or things that are going on in your life so that you can say, I need to tweak it. Maybe I'm going through a financially difficult time right now. I'm not going to be able to put away what I thought I was going to put away. And so how do I get there? Or do I pause? Or do I kind of change what I want out of my retirement?
So what are the differences then between men and women when they look at, you were saying that women typically, not all of them, but a larger percentage don't feel secure about their having enough money for their retirement. Is it sort of like the job thing where men figure, okay, I've got 2 of the 10 things they need, I'm a shoo-in, and women go, I only have 9.5, so I better not apply.
Yeah.
Is there a difference in how men and women perceive having enough?
Yeah, well, I totally think it is. I think it's just about, firstly, men think differently. So, the 2 out of the 10 thing is absolutely appropriate. It's a confidence factor, too. They have way more confidence than women, even though women would say, I'm not financially confident. Men may have the same level and say they're more confident. So I do think there's a different style in terms of how people think and what they want. But I think that all has to come into consideration. Sitting with an advisor that's actually going to get to know you and understand you will cut through that and reassure you as well and help you get to that path.
I think also the difference about Meridian being a credit union is because you're member owned. You're not accountable to shareholders, so you have your members' best interests at heart.
Oh,
right?
yeah, and everything we do. And, we're talking about, investing right now, but really your financial well-being is about everything, right? It's about your day-to-day living. It's about credit. And so we pride ourselves on always doing what's on the best interest for our members. We're not shareholder-owned, so we don't have to deliver certain results to our shareholders. And so we always put our members first in terms of what is the right product or service that is going to help them achieve their goals versus I'm going to product push because it's going to drive more revenue.
So question for anyone who's reticent, anyone who's listening, anyone who's thinking, I really should do that, but I don't want to walk in because then they're going to think that I have to invest. Is it okay to come in and have an appointment and see how you click with somebody?
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say. If I was to leave you with some takeaways, definitely everybody needs to go see an advisor. Doesn't matter what stage you're at. And so this whole term wealth, it can be intimidating. It doesn't matter what stage you're at. Go see an advisor, and they can help you get on your path, or they can help you where you're at, or they can tweak where you're at based on your financial situation and where you want to go. Now, if you're married, here's what I'm going to say to you. You still should go see an advisor, but make sure that you're at least getting in with your spouse to your advisor. You want those joint meetings. Don't abdicate that financial responsibility to your spouse because if they're not around, and we've talked about this beforehand, you can just be overwhelmed. So make sure that you are attending with your spouse any meetings that he is having with his advisor so that you are fully informed and your viewpoint is taken into consideration.
And the website is for people to connect with you?
www.meridiancu.ca. Go in there and feel free to check out our advisors in your location.
Well, she said she's magical, mystical, or a power